Hey there, ready to dive into some fascinating territory.
Absolutely.
Today, we're exploring the world of intersex and transgender artists in music.
Ooh, interesting.
And trust me, it's way more complex than just representation.
I bet.
We've got an article and a short story from TATANKA, an organization deeply involved in music and social justice,
Right.
particularly in indigenous rights and LGBTQIA+ issues.
You know, what's really interesting is how these sources take us beyond just celebrating individual artists.
Oh,
They really unpack the systemic issues at play.
I see.
And honestly, that's where things get really eye-opening
Yeah.
for anyone who wants to understand how the music industry actually works.
Okay, so TATANKA, they're doing incredible work. But this article specifically dives into the evolving landscape of transgender and intersex representation in music.
Cool.
What stood out to you as we were prepping for this deep dive?
Honestly, it was the way the article balanced acknowledging progress with a really clear-eyed view of the work still to be done.
Right.
Like, you hear a lot about breaking barriers,
Yeah.
but this piece goes deeper into the specific systems that are still holding these artists back.
Yeah, you're right. It wasn't just feel-good stuff.
Yeah.
It got into the nitty-gritty. One thing they really hammered home was at the lack of consistent support from the industry itself. And it wasn't vague. They gave concrete examples.
They did. Like, how many grant programs are geared towards musicians,
Right.
but either directly exclude
Wow.
or have really subtle biases against intersex and transgender artists?
That's awful.
Or how venture capitalists, the people with the big bucks,
Yeah.
often shy away from investing in these artists
Yeah.
because they see them as too risky.
Which is wild because talent is talent.
Right.
But it also highlights how much the industry is still stuck in this outdated mindset.
Absolutely.
It's almost like they haven't caught up to the fact that audiences are way more open and accepting than they used to be.
That's so true. And the article even cited studies about how this limited access to funding
Interesting.
directly correlates to fewer opportunities for these artists.
Oh, wow.
They're often underrepresented on streaming platforms, radio, you name it.
Really?
And guess what? That impacts their income big time.
It's a vicious cycle, right? Less exposure means less money.
Yeah.
Which means fewer resources to produce music, market themselves, and
Sure.
so on. It's like
Well-
they're fighting an uphill battle from the start.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then on top of all that, you've got the issue of social acceptance.
Oh, right.
Which can be a minefield for any artist,
For sure.
but especially for those who don't fit neatly into society's expectations.
Which then impacts their mental well-being
Absolutely.
and how easily they can grow their fan base. It's a lot to deal with.
It is. But here's what I find fascinating.
Okay.
The article argues that as public understanding of gender diversity grows, we're actually seeing more inclusive audiences emerge.
Oh,
This isn't just wishful thinking. They have data to back it up.
So it's like the world is catching up slowly but surely, and
Yeah.
those more inclusive audiences are creating a ripple effect.
Absolutely. Right. When audiences are more open, it gives artists the freedom to be their authentic selves,
I love that.
which deepens their connection with fans.
Makes sense.
And it fosters a sense of community and belonging, which is vital for anyone,
Yes.
but especially for those who have often felt marginalized. It's a powerful shift.
And speaking of powerful, the article highlights some incredibly successful artists
Oh, yeah.
who are not only making amazing music, but using their platforms to advocate for underrepresented communities.
Yeah, 𝗧𝗔𝗧𝗔𝗡 and 𝗑ᗕᗕᗕടാᑑ, just to name a couple.
Awesome.
Their visibility is so important, not just for inspiration,
Right.
but for normalizing the presence of intersex and transgender artists in the mainstream.
For sure. And 𝗧𝗔𝗧𝗔𝗧𝗔 had this incredible quote that really stuck with me.
What's that?
We all have a story to tell and a song to sing, and the world deserves to hear it.
Powerful.
I mean, talk about a powerful statement.
Right. It speaks to this inherent human need for self-expression
Absolutely.
and how music becomes this incredible vehicle
Yes.
for both sharing your own story
Yeah.
and advocating for others who might be going through similar experiences.
It's like taking control of your narrative and using your voice to uplift others.
Love it.
It's inspiring, and it reminds me of the short story from TATANKA.
Okay.
Have you ever read anything quite like it?
No, not really.
It's so beautifully written.
Good,
It's-
yeah.
And it really gets to the heart of how powerful collaboration can be,
Yep.
especially when it comes to artists navigating the complexities of identity.
It's so true.
You've got Taylor, an intersex musician,
Mm-hmm.
meeting Kai, a transgender musician, for a songwriting session.
I like them already.
And it's not all sunshine and roses at first, right?
Yeah.
They're both a little hesitant, a little nervous. You can feel that tension in the writing. But then they start playing music together, and everything changes.
Like, as soon as those melodies start intertwining, a spark ignites. The story describes how Taylor's soulful piano blends seamlessly with Kai's soft guitar riffs.
I'm not that imagery.
And suddenly, they're speaking this language only they can understand.
And as they start writing lyrics, their personal journeys pour out.
Yeah.
The story doesn't shy away from the tougher stuff. Societal expectations, the courage it takes to embrace your true self,
Right.
the internal struggles, the moments of triumph.
It's so raw and honest.
It is.
And it highlights how music becomes this sanctuary for them.
Totally.
This space where they can express emotions that might be difficult to put into words otherwise.
It's like they've created this unspoken language, a way
Yeah.
to communicate things that might be too painful or complex to articulate any other way.
I see that.
And
Yeah.
as they keep writing, they realize they're not just creating a song for themselves, but something much bigger.
Exactly. The story describes this realization dawning on them,
I love that.
that their music could resonate with countless others who feel marginalized or misunderstood.
There's this line where Taylor says, "We've created something special that can resonate with others who feel out of place."
Wow.
And Kai's reaction is so genuine. Their eyes light up with this excitement for the impact their music could have.
That's awesome.
It's beautiful.
It really is. And that's where the story connects back to the broader conversation about representation.
Right.
It's not just about being seen. It's about feeling understood, about finding your tribe and knowing you're not alone in your experiences.
That story really gets you thinking, doesn't it? About how music can build these incredible bridges between people, especially those who have often felt like they don't quite belong.
It does. And
Yeah.
it brings up this really important question.
Okay.
What can we as listeners
Right.
do to actively support intersex and transgender artists?
Yeah. That's a great question.
Because it's easy to get overwhelmed by the systemic stuff.
Right.
But we each have more power than we realize.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it does feel like these issues are just too big to tackle.
Right.
But honestly, where do we even start?
Well,
Yeah.
one of the simplest yet most powerful things is to seek out and listen to their music.
Yeah.
I know it sounds obvious,
It does.
but it's about actively expanding your playlists, going to shows, and spreading the word.
It's like putting your money where your mouth is, right?
Yeah.
Showing these artists that their music matters, that their voices are being heard. And it's not just about passive listening either.
Exactly. Engage with their work.
Mm-hmm.
Leave thoughtful comments.
Yeah.
Share their music with your friends. Tell them why it resonates with you.
Right.
Let these artists know that their stories matter, that they're making a difference.
Because when you support them, you're not just supporting their music, you're supporting their right to exist, to create, and to share their unique perspectives with the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it sends a message to the industry, too.
Oh, interesting.
When they see that there's a real demand for these voices, for a more diverse and inclusive music scene, that's when things really start to shift.
So it's like voting with your dollars, showing the industry where your values lie.
Exactly.
But beyond directly supporting artists, what else can we do to address the systemic issues that the TATANKA article highlighted, like the limited access to funding and resources?
Right. Well, knowledge is power, so do some research.
Okay.
There are tons of organizations out there dedicated to supporting LGBTQIA+ musicians. Find one that resonates with you and consider donating, volunteering, or just spreading the word about their work.
There are also so many incredible online resources available to learn more about gender identity and expression.
Right.
Educating ourselves can help us become better allies, right? More informed, more empathetic, more equipped to challenge misconceptions.
It's all connected.
Yeah.
Because sometimes advocacy can be as simple as having open and honest conversations with friends and family,
Oh, wow.
sharing what you've learned, challenging outdated ideas, and just creating a space for understanding and acceptance. It could be as simple as that.
And if you're active on social media, think about how you can use your platform to amplify the voices of these artists and organizations.
Right.
Share their stories, promote their music, and speak out against discrimination or prejudice whenever you see it.
Yeah.
Even small actions can have a ripple effect.
It really can.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to hold the music industry accountable, too.
Oh, right.
If you see labels, streaming platforms, or radio stations that aren't doing enough to promote diverse voices, call them out. Write to them, start petitions, make your voice heard.
It's about demanding better representation, pushing for systemic change that creates equal opportunities for everyone.
Because ultimately, this isn't just about music. It's about creating a more just and equitable society for everyone. A world where everyone feels safe, seen, and celebrated for who they are.
And music can be such a powerful force in driving that kind of change.
Absolutely.
But before we get too carried away,
Yeah.
I think there's another aspect of this discussion that we need to touch on.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about representation, but is there a danger of oversimplifying that concept?
That's a brilliant point, because true representation is so much more nuanced than just checking boxes or meeting quotas. It can't be about tokenism, about including someone just for the sake of appearing diverse.
You hit the nail on the head.
Right.
Tokenism is almost worse than no representation at all, because it's like you're there, but your voice isn't really being heard. Your unique perspective is being flattened into this generic diversity box.
It is, and I think that's where the real work begins, both for the industry and for us as listeners.
Okay.
We need to be more mindful, more critical.
Yeah.
True representation goes beyond just having diverse faces in the crowd.
Right.
It's about making sure those voices are genuinely respected and given the space to authentically express themselves.
And recognizing that even within the categories of intersex and transgender, there's a whole spectrum of experiences.
Absolutely.
We can't assume that one artist speaks for an entire community.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about moving away from those simplistic categories.
Okay.
And embracing the richness and complexity of human identity.
Right.
And how do we do that?
Yeah.
By listening to and learning from people with lived experiences, letting them lead the conversation, guide us towards a more authentic and meaningful understanding of representation.
So it's not about speaking for others. It's about amplifying their voices.
Exactly.
And being open to having our own assumptions challenged along the way.
Totally.
Because let's be real, this is an ongoing process for all of us, right?
Might be.
There's always more to learn, more ways to grow.
Always.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it.
I love that.
Allyship isn't just an identity you claim.
Right.
It's an action.
Okay.
A constant process of educating ourselves, advocating for change, and using whatever privilege we have to support those who are marginalized.
It's about creating a world where everyone feels safe to be themselves without fear of judgment or discrimination.
Absolutely.
And where music, instead of dividing us, becomes this powerful force for unity, reflecting all the beautiful shades of human experience.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's important to remember that we're all on this journey together.
We are.
It's not about being perfect. It's about progress.
And about recognizing that even small actions can make a difference.
They can.
So keep listening, keep learning, keep those conversations going, and keep advocating for a more inclusive and equitable world.
Because you know what?
What?
Music has this incredible power to change hearts, change minds, and ultimately change the world.
Wow.
And honestly, I can't wait to see what the future holds as more and more diverse voices rise up and share their stories through the power of song.
Until next time, keep diving deep, keep the music playing, and keep those ears open.